small, so you don't have to see anything.
That could be probably good.
Yeah? Okay,
Yeah,
sure.
it'd be
So you don't get
upset
okay, I'm just gonna
by
put,
what has happened to me.
Ladies and gentlemen, please keep the door closed because it's going to be hot today, and this is the only space that's there. Okay, I don't know where Rami is. Rami, please, you're speaking. I think you should come up in the front.
There's no chair. Where's the chair?
Behind Jonathan, and you guys will
How? What?
for the Q&A also. Okay, we're going to start the session. We have two important presentations. We have Jonathan Spire, who's from the Institute for Strategy and Security in Jerusalem, and his talk will be on Lebanese Hezbollah, a case study of anti-Semitic Shia Islamist group. And Rami Aziz, who's from ISGAP, the director of our Middle East Studies program, is going to speak about anti-Semitism in the Muslim Brotherhood.
No, there is something.
Okay, excuse me. Jonathan Spire is a journalist and a Middle East analyst. He's also a research fellow at the Jerusalem Institute for Strategy and Security, a fellow at the Middle East Forum, and a freelance security correspondent for James Information Group. Jonathan is the author of The Days of the Fall, a reporter's journey in Syria and the Iraq War. And Jonathan is a very important analyst and writer and journalist and author and commentator for now decades on the region, and does amazing analysis in my view, and also he's brave in that he goes to seek stories in places like Syria and doing good work on the war in Ukraine. So it's an honor that you're here, and thanks for taking the time to be with us.
Thanks very much, Charles, and good morning to everybody. I hope people can hear me at the back. I'm going to try. I don't have a microphone, so I'll try and project as best I can. So I want to begin with a quote. We're looking here at as the title says, at a case study in a sense of Lebanese Hezbollah as an anti-Semitic Shia Islamist group. And what I'm going to be trying to tease out in the talk is what is the particular nature of Hezbollah's attitude towards the Jews? How does it differ from that of other Islamist or other anti-Zionist or anti-Semitic organizations and movements? So I'd like to begin with a quote. It's from a prominent Hezbollah leader who you have heard of. The quote begins as the following: "But I'll tell you, among the signs and signals which guide us in the Islamic prophecies and not only in the Jewish prophecies is that this state of Israel will be established and that the Jews will gather from all parts of the world into occupied Palestine, not in order to bring about the Antichrist and the end of the world, but rather that Allah, the glorified and most high, wants to save you from having to go to the ends of the world, for they have gathered in one place. They have gathered in one place, and there the final and decisive battle will take place." Close quote. This is Hezbollah Secretary General Hassan Nasrallah, whose name I think is familiar to everybody here, speaking before an audience in Beirut in 2002. And much of Hezbollah's attitude toward the Jews may be discerned from this quote, as we'll go on to see. This statement and the movement's outlook regarding the Jews more broadly manages a kind of seamless combination of anti-Israeli and anti-Jewish sentiment, in which the politicidal ambitions regarding Israel are frankly and unambiguously located within an anti-Jewish worldview. And this outlook in turn underlies and shapes Hezbollah's actions, as we will go on to see. Hezbollah's worldview is theological and is essentialist. Israel is seen as iniquitous in nature, not because it represents a deviation from Jewish doctrines or essence, as in some other anti-Zionist formulations emerging from the Islamic Middle East, with which I suppose many of us are familiar, but rather in the case of Hezbollah, because this is the realization of them, the realization of the essential Jewish essence, as foreseen, according to Nasrallah, in both Islamic and Jewish scripture. In this regard, Hezbollah's anti-Semitism is quite separate from a notable Western strain of anti-Semitic anti-Zionism, which seeks to argue for the inauthenticity of Israel and which dismisses modern Jewish or Israeli claims to commonality with ancient Israel as spurious or constructed. Such views usually seek to depict Israel as a phenomenon analogous to Western settler colonialism, lacking any deep roots in Jewish history or in the Levant region. Hezbollah makes no such claims. It does not regard Israel as a modern phenomenon, falsely claiming links to the ancient Jews for the purposes of justifying a settler colonial project. Rather, Hezbollah pays Israel and Zionism the dubious compliment of locating it as an authentic, historically and theologically rooted expression of the Jewish communal essence. It then goes on to define this essence as entirely evil and nefarious in nature, and as destined to make war against the Islamic world until it is defeated by the latter. This view differs also from the usual formal declaration of Arab or Islamic anti-Zionism, according to which Jews, as a people of the book, have a legitimate and respected place as a religious minority, but no national rights. Interestingly, Hezbollah leaders sometimes pay lip service to this latter view. The picture is a complex one. As we shall see, one may locate various statements by Hezbollah spokesmen and leaders expressly denying accusations of anti-Jewish prejudice on the part of the movement, and rather declaring indeed acceptance of the Jews as a people of the book, deserving of the right to a peaceful communal life under Islamic rule and to freedom of worship. That kind of statement alongside what we heard from Nasrallah at the beginning. How can one explain this apparent contradiction? Should it be concluded that Hezbollah spokesmen are simply lying when rejecting claims of anti-Jewish prejudice, because they're aware of the negative publicity effects this could generate in the movement in the West, in an arena where the relative tolerance of Western governments for the movement's activities has proven of clear benefit for the organization? And if so, what are the roots, Islamic or otherwise, of the movement's authentic, virulently anti-Semitic stance? Or is there a way whereby these two apparently contradictory stances can be reconciled? That is, whereby a coherent ideological outlook might be assembled, according to which the Jews are an evil and iniquitous communal body, and are nevertheless to be permitted a legitimate, if powerless, communal existence under certain conditions. Examining this question requires a deeper look at the form, the roots, and the expression of Hezbollah's stance regarding the Jews and Israel. Sheikh Naim Qassem, a senior Hezbollah official, sometimes described as the second in command of the movement, in his book, Hezbollah, The Story from Within, which I have a copy of here, which if anyone's interested you can look at afterwards, characterizes the motivations behind Zionism in the following terms, and I quote, "The Zionist project was formed with a focus on religious fanaticism and Semitic prejudice, using the most dreadful of methods to achieve the project's aims." Elsewhere, Qassem writes, "The basic foundation of the racially prejudiced Zionist movement is expansion, an aim supported by religious foundations drawn from the Torah. According to the Torah, Palestine is an inheritance for the people of Israel, whose lives will not stabilize," it's an interesting choice of words, I think, "except through the expulsion of Palestine's original inhabitants." Similarly, Ayatollah Muhammad Hussein Fadlallah, one of the chief ideological fathers of Hezbollah, located this supposed motivation of Zionism within a supposed inherent Jewish desire for power. Fadlallah, and here we are with Fadlallah, open the quote. "The Jews want to be a world superpower," Fadlallah says. "This racist circle of Jews wants to take vengeance on the whole world for their history of persecution and humiliation. In this light, the Jews will work on the basis that Jewish interests are above all world interests. No one should imagine that the Jews act on behalf of any super or minor power. It is their personality to make for themselves a future world presence." Closed quotes. Later, Naim Qassem discusses what he regards as the danger to the Muslims of the region represented by Israel. And again, this discussion is rooted in an Islamic theological view which views the Jews as a uniquely cunning and malicious enemy. Naim Qassem in this discussion cites two other figures, each of whom, as we shall see, is essential in understanding Hezbollah's views on Israel and the Jews, namely Ayatollah Khomeini of Iran and the mythical revered figure of the 12th Imam, Imam al-Mahdi, whose reappearance in 12 Shia eschatology is meant to trigger the end of days. With your permission, I'd like to read a little passage from Qasim again, because I think that it is very useful for teasing out what this stuff sounds like in a certain sense. Not just the meaning of it, but what the stuff sounds like. And Qasim writes, "It's not permissible to squander the land of Muslims or that which is sanctified. Rising to their defense and liberation is a natural obligation for which all Muslims are liable. As Imam Khomeini declared," and this is Qasim quoting, this is me quoting Qasim quoting Khomeini, it gets complicated. "The extortionist government of Israel, through its tendentious plans for Islamic nations and Muslims, represents a great danger. It is feared that confrontation may become impossible should Muslims show lassitude. Given that the danger is directed at the very essence of Islam, it is the duty of all Muslims, and specifically of Islamic states, to take the initiative for the obliteration of this pond of decay with all possible means, and not to decline the Mujahideen any assistance towards this end." And Qasim then goes on to quote Surah number 17, Al-Isra, from the Quran, in which he seeks, I won't read the whole thing, but in which he seeks to locate theological justification for this position. So herein then we have the essential components of Hezbollah's view on this subject. An essential Jewish identity seen as the causal factor behind Zionism and the establishment of Israel, the location of the understanding of this identity in Islamic texts, and importantly, the location of the resistance to this entity ending in its destruction in a specific 12 Shia eschatology. Amal Saad Ghorayeb, a British Lebanese researcher who is supportive of Hezbollah, important to note this latter fact, by the way, in her book Hezbollah, Politics and Religion, best sums up this point in the following terms. And with your permission, I will now quote from Amal Saad Ghorayeb's book, page 174. And Amal Saad Ghorayeb writes in the following terms: "As odious as Zionism is to Hezbollah, the party insists that its strong aversion to Judaism is unrelated to its abomination of Zionism, and hence exists irrespective of the existence of Zionism. According to Hezbollah's interpretation of the Quran and the Old and New Testaments, from time immemorial, the Jews have continuously demonstrated their quintessentially evil nature." Qasim expresses this view succinctly: "The history of Jews has proven that regardless of the Zionist proposal, they are a people who are evil in their ideas. From the very origins of their existence, the Jews created mischief for people wherever they went. For Abbas al-Musawi, former leader of Hezbollah, killed by Israel in 1992, this Quranic interpretation of Jewish history shows that the problem with the Jews does not lie in their occupation of Lebanon and not in their usurpation of Palestine either, but in their religious creed." In practice, this conflation of the establishment and existence of Israel with the supposedly nefarious power-seeking plans of the Jews opens the door to the embrace by Hezbollah of a variety of forms of anti-Semitism and anti-Semitic rhetoric, including elements which have no relation of any kind to Hezbollah's own core Shia Islamic outlook. And indeed, a perusal of statements and programming by Hezbollah propaganda outlets and by the movement's spokespeople and leaders, unsurprisingly, produces a rich harvest of classical anti-Semitic prejudice, indistinguishable in many ways from the traditional language of the European far right, or indeed in certain circumstances, the European far left. Here is a taster, or a few tasters, of this phenomenon to give you a sense of what was happening here. In a 1998 speech marking the day of Ashura, the Shia festival of Ashura, and published in Nasrallah's official website, Nasrallah refers to Israel as the state of the grandsons of apes and pigs, the Zionist Jews. Hezbollah celebrates Holocaust denial too. Jews invented the legend of the Holocaust, says Nasrallah, on April 9th, 2000. During an appearance on Al-Manar, Hezbollah media, on February 3rd of the same year, Nasrallah calls Europe's leading Holocaust denier, Roger Giraudi, a great French philosopher. On February 23rd, Nasrallah appears in Al-Manar and praises another leading European Holocaust denier, David Irving, for having denied the existence of gas chambers. One fatwa, or religious edict, probably issued by Iranian clerics, provides Lebanese Shia drug dealers with a theological base for their business with Western consumers. They say, we're making drugs for Satan, America and the Jews. If we can't kill them with guns, so we'll kill them with drugs. Describing them once again as the descendants of apes and pigs, Nasrallah decried Israel as a few million vagabonds from all over the world, brought together by the Talmud and Jewish fanaticism. Al-Manar TV, the movement's main propaganda outlet, is a regular purveyor of openly anti-Jewish sentiment of this kind. So another example, in one 2002 broadcast quoted by researcher Matthew Levitt, a guest informs viewers that there are Torah-based reasons for many Americans to use WMD. Therefore, it is essential that there be a world and Arab movement against this Torah-based project. This is a Torah-based plan to finish all Islam. I have many other examples, but I won't detain you, I suppose, with an endless sort of recitation of them. Let me mention, though, one more, which is to say that Hezbollah's anti-Semitism also parlays modern-day conspiracy theories. So less than a week after 9/11, an Al-Manar broadcast posited that Israelis and Jews were complicit in the attacks, and probably people here are familiar with the shape of this argument, which goes that some 4,000 Jews survived the attacks because Israeli intelligence warned them of the impending disaster ahead of time, and therefore they didn't go into work. And so on and so forth. Now, much of this stuff to Western ears, no doubt, sounds somewhat ridiculous. It's worth remembering, though, that the Arabic-speaking world is a milieu in which anti-Jewish prejudice is normative and mainstream, and we shouldn't be frightened or shy about pointing this out. As the late Bernard Lewis said, the societal norm for attitudes towards Jews in the Arab world resembles that of pre-1939 Europe. So much of the evidence recorded here will be regarded as unremarkable in contemporary mainstream discourse among both friends of Hezbollah and its opponents. I'd like now to touch on an additional, I think, interesting theological element to this, unique to Hezbollah, and it is the following. There is, in Shia Islam, a traditional emphasis on questions of ritual purity. In Arabic, tahara and najasat. Tahara is similar to the Hebrew word, toha, right? Tahor, purity. Among many strict Shia, non-Muslims have traditionally been included in the list of unclean things, contact with which produced a state of ritual impurity in Muslims, along with wine, pigs, carrion, fecal matter, and so on. Iranian Shia authorities were traditionally extremely strict on this matter. And as a result, in the early 19th century, restrictive rules were imposed on Jews, preventing them, for example, from going out when it was raining, lest their impurities pass on to Muslims through the water. By the early 20th century, such practices were falling into decline. It's possible that these practices, by the way, were influenced by Zoroastrianism. Lewis suggests this in his book, The Jews of Islam. They are unknown to mainstream Sunni Islam. But these notions were revived by Khomeini and the Islamic Revolution and the movements that emerged from that. And in a widely circulated book on the subject, Khomeini lists unbelievers in a list of items deemed unclean. The Iranian Shia Islamist milieu, which has revived such notions, is the one of which Hezbollah is a part. So this context should be taken into account when considering the movement's attitudes to Jews. Those with knowledge of Shia communities in Pakistan, Iraq and Lebanon will be aware of the strength which such perceptions still have at the popular level. Nevertheless, with all this, we are aware, and it's worth reiterating once again, that Hezbollah's spokesman, alongside this, continue to deny claims that the movement is anti-Semitic and anti-Jewish in nature. So all this goes alongside this other thing. It's strange. So let's go back to this again then. How are we going to explain this discrepancy? Amal Saad Ghorayeb, Hezbollah supporter, does this by noting that the form of coexistence advocated by Hezbollah is of a particular minimal kind. In an interview with Hezbollah official Ali Fayyad, she concludes that the movement is compelled to abide by the dictates of Islamic jurisprudence and to recognize the Jews as a people of the book, who despite their demonization in the Quran can't be the subjects of a jihad on that account alone. But she discusses the concept of al-tasakkun al-barid, cold cohabitation with the Jews, where the Jews will be left to live in peace, but there will be no normalization with them. By the way, Hezbollah differentiates between this and the preferred relationship to Christians, where there is a much greater degree of true normalization recommended. Does this then solve the contradiction? I would suggest, and this is the final sort of part of this talk that I want to give, I would suggest it doesn't do so entirely. And it doesn't do so entirely because an additional element which we need to consider when looking at Hezbollah is the very large element prevalent in the theology and ideology of the movement of a particular pro-Iranian Shia Islamist eschatology or end of days element. In the quote of Nasrallah at the beginning, it should be noted then, this is not merely a generalized call for the destruction of the Jews, it's an outlining of a very specific end times scenario. So what end times scenario is Nasrallah discussing here? It is the scenario according to which the 12th Imam, or Imam Mahdi, returns to earth, and within 12 or Imami Shi'ism, the dominant trend of Shi'ism, the beliefs in the coming of the Messiah focus upon the figure of the 12th Imam, Muhammad al-Mahdi, who tradition claims disappeared and went into occultation in 873 CE. And the notion is that the Mahdi's return will result in a series of battles between the Mahdi and one Abu Sufyan, identified as an Arab ruler hostile to the Mahdi, and then with the Dajjal, a deceiver or antichrist figure often associated with the West or with Israel in contemporary Shia Islamist writing. And the notion, of course, the Mahdi will be victorious and will then establish a messianic state encompassing the world. There's some more detail on this, but because of shortness of time, I want to just move on. But just to note or quote briefly a writer called David Cook in an essay of 2011 called Messianism in the Shia Crescent, says the Dajjal or Antichrist is another key figure in Muslim apocalyptic literature. Since the Dajjal is said to be a Jew, contemporary writers often use this figure to inject anti-Semitic conspiracy thinking into mainstream apocalyptic writings. Books of these kind have aimed not only to introduce classical prophecies about Mahdi to ever wider audiences, but have also provided religiously charged interpretations of contemporary events in terms of the Mahdi's imminent return, designed to compel readers to take action. Now, finally, let me note or remind us all that Hezbollah, of course, is not a debating society and is not an ideological club. So the significance of what we've been discussing up tonight is not merely in the sense of what does this interesting group of people think about the region and everybody who lives in it. Crucially, in practice, Hezbollah's seamless combination of anti-Jewish and anti-Israeli sentiment leads to a non-distinction in targeting of Israeli and Jewish communal targets globally. This is the logical continuum of the outlook discussed here. So let me just give you a few examples to illustrate this from the movement's activity. Going back to the birth of Hezbollah. Hezbollah in 1985 kidnapped 9 Jews in Lebanon, including Yitzhak Sasson, the leader of the Jewish community, and Dr. Eli Halak, the community doctor. And these abductees were murdered and their bodies have never been located. And the most catastrophic attack, of course, by Hezbollah was the July 18, 1994 vehicle-borne suicide bombing at the Amia Jewish Community Center in Buenos Aires, Argentina. 86 people were killed, more than 300 injured. This attack, of course, ordered by Iranian government leaders, coordinated by Iranian intelligence and executed by Hezbollah. While choosing targets abroad, Hezbollah operatives routinely undertake hostile reconnaissance against Jewish individual and community locations worldwide, including in Europe. I know you're going to visit the Community Security Trust here in the UK as part of your visit. They'll be able to give you some, although maybe not too much, detail about some of that stuff. In October 2019, 2 Iranian operatives pleaded guilty in the US to spying on behalf of Iran. They were charged with collecting information on Jewish and Israeli targets in the US and on opponents of the Iranian regime. Hostile reconnaissance against Jewish religious and cultural centers in Chicago, photographs of security around the buildings, and so on and so forth. So it's clear the point I'm trying to make here, which is that this stuff translates directly into violence and into murder. To conclude then, the points I wish to make. The Lebanese Hezbollah organization adheres to an ideology which has at its core a version of anti-Zionism which is inherently anti-Jewish, locating what it regards as the criminal nature of Zionism and Israel in what it sees as the uniquely evil and iniquitous nature of the Jews. While on an ideological level this version of anti-Semitism may differ from other contemporary versions of both anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism, in practice this ideological formulation is accompanied by the adoption of the movement of more familiar tropes of modern anti-Semitism, including Holocaust denial. As an Islamic movement, Hezbollah is required to deal with the notion of the Jews as a people of the book, therefore entitled to an ordered, if subordinate, role in Islamic society. Hezbollah spokesmen do this by taking a minimal interpretation of this role for Jews, but not for Christians, according to which Jews will be left unmolested under Islamic rule without being permitted to take an equal or active role in society. The growth in popularity of messianic and eschatological thinking in Hezbollah statements and publications over the last decade and a half indicate that even this fate appears to be considered excessively positive for the Jews in Hezbollah's view. Instead, the increasingly popular view sees the Jews as part of an upcoming final battle between good and evil, which will end with their final defeat. And lastly, to reiterate, by way of conclusion, it is important or crucial to remember that this anti-Semitic Islamist outlook has consequences not only on the rhetorical level. Rather, it dictates Hezbollah's praxis as a global terrorist organization. When selecting targets, Hezbollah makes no effort at differentiating between Israeli official affiliates and personnel and Jewish communal buildings and Jews who are non-citizens of Israel. That is, Hezbollah's outlook leads to the murder and the attempted murder of Jews worldwide, and this is the logical destination and conclusion of the outlook that I've been discussing in this talk. So I'll leave it there and thank you.
Jonathan, thank you very much for an important contribution. So we'll hear from Rami, and then we'll have a Q&A that'll be open to both of you.
Yep.
We need to change.
And while they're changing seats, I want to recognize
you
Rob
wanna-
Sattler.
Yeah, sure. Just get myself up.
So Rob just arrived at least
Amazing.
this afternoon.
Thanks, man.
He's the director of the Washington Institute, an old friend, and he's also one of the directors of ISGAP, so it's an honor that he's here.
Is it open? You know?
Wait,
Is it this?
I make it.
No,
What?
that's the panel. Do you know if it has been open yet?
I don't know, to be honest.
Let me get.
Okay, okay.
I think Rami and Jonathan look like brothers.
Yeah, he just said, he just said the same thing. Yeah, he's my brother indeed, yeah.
Where did you send your presentation?
Yeah, to you on Shada yesterday.
Can you send it? I don't know how to use a Mac. That's my issue.
You need to check the email?
Yeah, email. Yeah, how do I get to email here?
Oh, email.
Info account, no?
No, I just need to Shada and Daphne.
I don't know. How should I set this up? I don't know if she did. I think she's solving an issue.
Be quiet. No, I have a presentation.
Okay, so in the meanwhile, not to waste time,
Yeah,
there's
exactly.
a problem with the PowerPoint. Do you guys have any questions for Jonathan? Yeah.
Come to take the question.
Yeah, thank you for an excellent presentation. I'm not surprised by the second quote and the subsequent quotes about the view of Hezbollah on Jews. That was pretty much, or that is pretty much the Islamist view throughout since the advent of Islam that waxed and waned depending on who the leader was. But I'm surprised by the first quote that you mentioned, that they see the establishment of the state of Israel as a theological dictate, and so all the Jews can gather so they could kill them. But if that was the case, if they really believed in that theological position, then I would think that they would make the state of Israel very, very comfortable, hospitable, so all the Jews will move there. They will facilitate Aliyah, lehavdil, as we say, like the evangelicals, that they want all the Jews to go there so the Messiah will come. So I would think if they really believe much in that dictate, then they would really make living in Israel very hospitable, but they will not attack it. So how do you explain that that is not the case?
Well, I think, first of all, just to note that what we see in all these statements is enormous inconsistencies throughout. Right? Because in a way, the whole apocalyptic side of things is not compatible with seeing the Jews as Ahl al-Kitab, as a person, people of the book as well. You can't really have both. So I don't think there's a real internal consistency in this. And I think we shouldn't, the ideology is fascinating, of course, but we should also be looking at the fact that often it's a cover for much more basic and murderous intentions. Hezbollah at the end of the day was brought into being by Islamic Republic of Iran for the purpose of conducting a long war, or part of a long war, against Israel. And this is, I think, the real aspect to it. So, it can be justified in theological terms simultaneously in contradictory ways. On the one hand, yes, this is an inevitable process, and we're happy because they're all gathering in one place for us to kill them. On the other hand, right, if we kill them now, it might deter Aliyah, is what you're saying. I don't think that Hezbollah is thinking, though, about these questions in quite as practical or immediately practical a way as might be pointed out. However, it's a very interesting thought, and you might want to maybe write to them and suggest that they adopt that view in keeping with their ideological outlook. It could only be good if they would.
Hi, Jonathan.
Hi.
Sorry I missed your presentation. I know you, so I'm sure everything was good, and I know your work. I agree with your work. How do you feel about, in their core aqidah, their creed, that when they say that Imam Mahdi Islam will reveal himself because they believe that physically he's here already?
Yeah.
How do you reconcile that against the prophecies that the first battle will not be with the Jews? The first battle will be with Muslims who do not accept Imam Mahdi.
Yes.
And they quote, and there's different narrations, in between 90,000 to 120,000 Muslim ulamas will be killed first. So do you think it's really, realistically, when Imam Mahdi comes according to their beliefs, that Jews will be the first target? There will be a target, and I know there will be. They are a target. Do you think the first target will be Muslims, and the first battle will be with Muslims?
So it's a very interesting question, Harris, and thank you for that. I mean, what I at least have come across in reading the growing body of writings by Hezbollah-associated publications about this issue of end of days is that a quite coherent sort of timeline is laid out, in which once Imam Mahdi appears, then his first battles are against an Arab leader. They refer to as Abu Sufyan.
Yes, sir.
Right, and then these battles where they're fighting Arabs, and of course he's defeated, Abu Sufyan, and then the Mahdi goes to the real battle against the Dajjal. And the Dajjal is increasingly, especially on a popular level, identified with Israel and the Jews, or with the West, or sometimes with both. But I know that in my own conversations, even with people over the years around the circles of Hezbollah, when I've been working in Beirut and elsewhere, and I think you know this well, the Dajjal is not only a sort of intellectual figure that appears in writings, it's also kind of this terrifying presence of evil in the world with one eye and all these terrifying notions. So, that goes together, I think, with the perception of the Jews. So the answer is, I think they do have quite a coherent timeline of how this is meant to happen. It starts with defeating corrupt Arab rulers, and it ends with the defeat of the Jews. Sunnis, absolutely, yeah. They're defeated first. And in a certain way, if we think about the way that Hezbollah is relating to the Arab world at the moment, with the increasing closeness of much of the Arab world to Israel, it fits rather nicely with, if you were a believer in this. Okay, we'll first deal with the corrupt Arab leaders, and we all know who they are, and then we'll deal with the Dajjal and his armies.
So do you think they could be doing taqiyya, because it's very much part of their creed? And taqiyya is when you can pretend to be doing something, you can lie just to achieve the objectives. So do you think by siding with Hamas and all these groups, they're actually doing a form of taqiyya? Because they don't actually even think they're Muslim.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, it's interesting to note that. I mean, this goes, I think, back to what the Iranians themselves are busy doing. And in a way, with regard to taqiyya, this is a theological issue that I hesitate to get into. I mean, there is very clearly a central contradiction in the whole Iranian regional project. Yeah, which is on the one hand, actually, the end of the day, it is a Shia sectarian project, but it also, for its success, requires the adherence and appeal to the broad Sunni Arab masses. Yeah, and there's something incoherent at the center of that, I think.
So I think the PowerPoint is ready for Rami.
Go for it.
More questions?
Rami,
Okay. That's okay. Now we are here. It was supposed to speak about the anti-Semitism in the Sunni branch of Islam, but I found it would be more heavy, and that's not good for us. But because, yeah, but I give a conclusion if Jonathan agree with me. Yeah.
Can you unmute yourself?
Yeah.
No, unmute. And you can just use this, yeah?
Yeah, the conclusion between the Sunni branch and the Shia branches, there is no difference. Both of them are looking to finish the Jewish state and Israeli people and Jewish across the world. So we have something very strong happening in recently, or still happening in the Middle East. We can't ignore it here. It's very important to somebody like me came from the Middle East to tell the people, and there is some hope in the region. There's some change, really change happening in the region. And the Abrahamic Accord, the optimal model for regional cooperation. So I will start with introduction, like any boring academic style, to say this term emerged, the term of the Abrahamic Accord emerged for the first time on the 13th August 2020, when both Israel and the United Arab Emirates declared the normalization of relations between them under the auspices of the United States in September, and later in September, Bahrain joined them or followed the declaring its normalization with Israel. And we here can see the historical photo of signing the Abraham Accord in September 15, if my memory is still good, in the White House. We can find here Abdul Latif al-Zayani, the Bahraini foreign minister, Bibi Netanyahu, Donald Trump, and Sheikh Abdullah bin Zayed, the Emirati foreign minister. And to talking about the advance or the change happening in the region, we can discover that through three areas. I will discover that through, firstly, the political and diplomatic area, secondly, the economic area, thirdly, the military and security area. When it comes to the political and diplomatic area, we can see here in the photo the former Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett in December 2021. He in a visit for the first time by Israeli Prime Minister to Abu Dhabi, the capital of United Arab Emirates. He met here with Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed, the current president of Emirates. It's first time ever to be in the capital. I'd like to shed the light on something. Egypt had a peace agreement with Israel long time ago, more than 4 decades. But it's a rare time. I think it's one time that Israeli Prime Minister hosted or received in the capital, Cairo. All the meeting running in Sharm el-Sheikh. Yes, there is a message from that. We have a peace, but you are not welcome to the capital. So, but here in Emirati case, there is a real peace. There is a full peace, as Rob Shatloff always called it, a full peace. Or we can say warm peace. If there is a peace, if we decided to go through this way, we have to be equal. I have to receive you in my home, in my capital, and you did the same. So here is this, is beyond a photo. It's more than photo, you can see it. You can read it. You can hear it. There is many message delivered from this photo. After that, in January 2022, at the beginning of this year, there was another real visit, an important visit by Israeli President Isaac Herzog to Abu Dhabi, the United Arab Emirates. And he has been met with Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed, also the president, and he received the same treatment in high level. After that, let's talk about Bahrain, the second country in Gulf state joined the Abraham Accord. In February 2022, there is a very high level and real visit level by Naftali Bennett in Bahrain. We can see here in the middle is the king of Bahrain and the crown prince. They hosted Naftali Bennett, they welcomed him, and they discussed with him many issues. We will come in the second area and the third area about economy and the military. But we are here talking about the diplomatic relationship. There is a serious diplomatic relationship. The Israeli president, the Israeli prime minister in the capital, not in the resort, not in the other city in the state. But there is some relationship between Abraham Accord and the old peace treaty in the region. Yes, I can say that the Abraham Accord makes some warming up for the Camp David, because we can see here, but unfortunately it's not in Cairo, but in Sharm el-Sheikh, Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed, Naftali Bennett, and Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. There is many messages delivered from this meeting that we as Egyptians feel that there is a kind of competition between Camp David and the Abraham Accord, and there is no way. We have to be involved more, and we have to warming up this cold peace. That is the message for me as Egyptian. I read in this way. Okay, secondly, I'm going to speak about the economic area. Let's start with the United Arab Emirates. Before signing the Abraham Accords, the volume of trade between Israel and the Gulf states, including the United Arab Emirates, was estimated at approximately at $1 billion. All Gulf states and Israel, there is $1 billion only. But what happened after Abraham Accords? Well, both Israel and the United Arab Emirates have taken several important, rapid, and considerable steps that resulted in a boom in the economic cooperation between both countries in this regard. In numbers, we will get some ideas on the economic relationship development between both countries since signing the Abraham Accords. Once the Abraham Accords have been signed between Israel and the United Arab Emirates, an investment package of around $10 billion has been announced in the sector of technology. And before Abrahamic Accords, we're talking about Gulf state, all the Gulf state countries, just around $1 billion. Just after the Abraham Accords, only in the sector of technology, not the others, because we will come to the other sectors, we are talking about $10 billion. Because as we know, Israel is a leading country in the technology. So the Emirati are seeking, or the Arab seeking for the Israeli technology. One of the motives behind the Abrahamic Accord is the technology. Because now we are living in the era of technology. Technology are involved in everything, agriculture, health sector, manufacturing, in different aspects of life. So a short time after signing the accords, the volume of trade between Israel and the United Arab Emirates only jumps to reach $1 billion. We are talking about future deal in technology only about $10 billion, but the trade jumps to $1 billion. More numbers will come, 1 billion. No, trillion is coming. Well, please don't. Okay. In May 2022, here is the trillion coming. Yeah. Talking about trillion. You can imagine trillion in economy in Middle East. We have a poor country, a high level of poverty will make a big difference for whole the region. Not only it, the relationship here is not limited between Israel and the United Arab Emirates. It will reflect about the rest of the region for sure, because there is export, import, and So in May 2022, Israel and the United Arab Emirates signed the free trade agreement. Consequently, the volume of trade and investments between both countries is expected to reach $1 trillion within the next 10 years. We are talking about the volume of economic relationship will develop next decades, $1 trillion. You can imagine this volume of money. How can it change the face of the region? Middle East is a high percentage of poverty according to United Nations. In Egypt, for instance, we are about 120 million or 110. 65% of them under 40 years. The high percentage of illegal immigration from North Africa and Arab world to Europe came from Egypt, across Libya and across other countries. Of those people, get opportunity in their countries, and there is a hope. I think many problems, not only in Middle East, but even across the world, will be solved. The high level of extremists. Why? The Muslim Brotherhood, what's the mechanism the Muslim Brotherhood and other group working with in our countries? To fill that social gap, giving the people food and tell them to deliver the message and carry out. So you can imagine what the Abraham Accord will do with this huge number of economy. We will change the face of the region. It will take a time, but it will happen. So we can see here the Israeli Minister of Economy with the Emirati, and we hear Amir Hayek, the Israeli ambassador to Abu Dhabi, while they are signing this agreement. And here is a very important tweet from Yair Lapid. He said, today Israel and the United Arab Emirates opened a new chapter of prosperity and cooperation in the Middle East. Notes, I like his narrative because he said in the Middle East. He didn't mention only between Israel and Emirates, because as I told you, this economy will reflect about the development in the other countries across the Middle East. Thank you, blah, 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 for your work and make this historic free trade agreement between our countries the first of its kind between Israel and Arab state reality. That is a history. That is Abraham Accord. We can move a little bit. Here is we have Mohammed Al-Khaga. Mohammed Al-Khaga is the Emirati ambassador to Israel. He said, United Arab Emirates and Israel is an unprecedented achievement. Businesses in both countries will benefit from faster access to market and lower tariffs as our nation work together to increase trade, create jobs, promote new skills, and deepen cooperation. Thank you, Ohad Cohen, for your efforts. We need to stop here about create jobs. Create jobs, that means create hope for the people in the Middle East. If those people get the hope, no ISIS can recruit more people. No Ikhwan Muslimin will can spread their ideology among the people. No Hezbollah, as Jonathan is speaking about the other side of the Shia. So it's a major tool. We have here Amir Haik, Ambassador Amir Haik, Israeli ambassador to Abu Dhabi. He said, great news, the trade excluding software. We have to focus on excluding software, because software, I think it will jumping, Israeli software across the Middle East, not only Emirates, will be a leading product during the next decades. We are talking about 10 billion directly after signing the Abraham Accord, but I'm expected that it will be more and more during the next decades. Egypt will be involved as well. Currently, Egypt involved in the issue of the gas in east of Mediterranean, and there is a real cooperation, South cooperation, about $20 billion during the next decades. But I hope it will be increased next day after the war in Ukraine. Europe need more energy from the Middle East, so Israel and Egypt can play a vital role in this regard. So he said the trade excluding software between Israel and the United Arab Emirates in the first half of 2022 reached 1.2 billion. In the same period in 2021, we were at $560 million. There's a difference. There's a rapid change happened in the Middle East. Yeah. It stated that the most prominent areas of cooperation between Israel and the United Arab Emirates are presented in technology, agriculture, climate change, health, and cybersecurity. Cybersecurity, we will come to that in the third area, but when talking about security and the defense. Even we can't ignore tourism. The number of Israeli tourists that have visited the United Arab Emirates since normalization, the relationships between the two countries estimated at 200,000 tourists. The source is Rabbi Eli Abadi, and I asked him yesterday, and he said, you can share us with the information.
By now we have reached almost 400,000.
400,000, yeah. We need to update this number. Okay. And it's expected for the number to rise 4 times within the coming 5 years. So we're talking about 2 million at least will visit United Arab Emirates. And there is Emirati also visited Israel during the last time. One of them is Dr. Muhammad Ali. He will join us shortly, and he on his way to Oxford. He can speak better than me about his experience when he visited Israel after Abrahamic Accord. I can tell you about my personal visit in 2016, but unfortunately it was Abrahamic Accord. So it was before, sorry. So aviation as well. For the first time, direct airlines between Israel and the United Arab Emirates has been integrated. We can see here a tweet from Emirates Airlines said, touchdown, we have officially landed in our newest destination, Tel Aviv. Let's talk about Kingdom of Bahrain as well. Yes, Kingdom of Bahrain is a small monarchy, a small economy, but it's still active actor in the area. It's still important to focus about the Bahraini relationship with Israel. We can say regarding Bahrain, many agreements of cooperation between Israel and Bahrain have been signed in the areas of agriculture, trade, water, electricity, and technology, as well as the areas of finance, businesses, aviation, and tourism. Let us do a little focus here about the number. Not big number, but it's symbolic number. After the volume of trade between both countries, I mean here Bahrain and Israel, was zero. Zero. There is no relationship at all. Zero. Zero, it means zero. No. Before signing the Abraham Accords, it has now increased to $1.2 million. Moreover, a direct airlines between Israel and Bahrain has been integrated. We can see here the first flight for Gulf Air is official air company of Bahrain when arrived to Tel Aviv. They have two flags, Israeli and Bahraini one. Okay, thirdly, I'm going to talk about the security and military area. It's very important to shed light about this kind of cooperation. We in the region currently, as a commentator, as a political analyst, as a researcher, as a scholar, we divided the region into two axes. We have resistant axes, including Hezbollah, Hamas, Lebanon, Syria, Iran, and this proxy, Al-Houthi as well. And we have moderate axes, or moderate countries. Moderate countries include Abraham Accord plus Israel, Egypt, and Jordan. Sometimes Jordan joins, sometimes it's not Jordan, but anyway. So the moderate countries of the region share the same fear of Iranian terrorist threats as a result of the terrorist and Iran activities in which Iran uses the militia to destabilize the countries of the region. Starting from the countries and the region it controls or has influence over, such as Iraq, Lebanon, Syria, Yemen, Gaza Strip, through the Houthi group, Hezbollah, the Popular Mobilization, and Hamas. Therefore, the security and military area has been one of the areas focused on and considered within the cooperation among the Abraham Accords. Let us give example about the military and security cooperation. Let's start with the United Arab Emirates as a leading country in the region now in cooperation with Israel. Earlier this year, the Emirati capital Abu Dhabi experienced terroristic attack made by the terrorist Houthi group. Houthi group located in Yemen is a proxy Iranian militia backed by Iran, existing in Yemen, using ballistic missiles and drones which caused damage to some facilities and the death of 3 people. In reaction to this terrorist attack, Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett, in his letter to the Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed, expressed the full support of the Israeli military and the intelligence institution to the United Arab Emirates to confront terrorist threat from terrorist groups backed by Iran. I quoted here what Naftali Bennett said exactly. He said, Israel is committed to working closely with you, he mean here Emirati or Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed, in the running battle against the extremist forces in the region. And we will continue to do so until the common enemies are beaten. There is no mercy. For Kingdom of Bahrain, in February 2022, the Minister of Defense, Benny Gantz, he visited Bahrain, the capital, El Manama, and signed an MOU in defense and security affairs, which will allow cooperation between Israel and Bahrain in the military and the intelligence fields, and the exchange of experience at training, as well as cooperation at the level of armies industry. To protect the common interest of both countries, at the top of them providing security and protecting the freedom of navigation in the Gulf region. For the first time, Israel, along with the other Arab armies, engaged in a naval training and maneuvers in the Gulf region under the leadership of the United States Fifth Fleet, that is headquartered located in Bahrain and in Manama. We can find here photos. These photos deliver message to certain people, especially Iran. Israel said, we are here. You know, when you look at Google Maps to find where is Bahrain and where is Iran, you can see Iranian coast from Bahrain, by the way. You know, so when Israel talking from the capital of Bahrain, Manama, not Israeli Prime Minister, we are talking the Minister of Defense. This is a strong message about what is Abraham Accord about the security and the defense. We are here. That is the message. And for the first time, Israeli forces training alongside the Arab armies under auspices of the United States. Clear message. And here we can see Benny Gantz while he signed this security agreement between them. Even Naftali Bennett, he later visited in Manama, the capital of Bahrain, and he interviewed by Al Ayam, it's mean the days, the prominent Bahraini newspaper, and I will quote him again here, and what he said. He said, Both Israel and Bahrain are dealing with a considerable security challenges stemming from the same source, namely the Islamic Republic of Iran. Iran destabilizes stability in the whole region. Iran supports the terrorist organizations working in our regions for achieving one goal, which is destroying the moderate countries. We are not talking about Israel like before. We are talking about moderate countries. As I told, is Israel besides other Sunni countries, including Emirates, Bahrain, Egypt, Jordan, and between Saudi Arabia is there. You know, that care for its people well-being, achieving stability and peace. We will not allow this to happen. Here we have a special video. Before conclude my presentation, there is a rare interview happened between Rob Shatloff and Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed in Abu Dhabi in late, I think October 2021. Usually Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed doesn't prefer to speak in public or to TV, but now I just collected exclusive information. This interview was 25 minutes, but we are going to watch here just 5 minutes. To get more information about the message of Abrahamic Accord, the meaning of Abrahamic Accord. Guys, how I can run it from here? I'm old fashioned.
Sounds good.
So,
Yeah.
Your Highness, it's a great pleasure to be here representing the Washington Institute for Near East Policy. About 10 years ago, we established our highest honor, our Scholar Statesman Award, to recognize leaders and public figures whose achievements are based on the ideals we value the highest. These are the ideals of scholarship and statesmanship. Statesmanship being the ability to take your people, your country, your nation, your institution, places they've never gone. Scholarship, the keen appreciation that to go where you want to go, you need to know where you've been. And a fierce understanding of the world around you. You, sir, have surely merited this award. And we cite two very specific achievements in that regard. One is the bold leadership for peace. Not just a diplomatic peace with Israel, but a full peace. A peace in politics, in economics, in culture, in people to people. And even beyond that, a peace that is broad through the Abraham Accords, a peace that now stretches from the Atlantic to the Gulf. And then here at home, your decision to extend and embrace tolerance toward all the adherents of the Abrahamic faiths. I had the privilege of seeing the Abrahamic family house yesterday in all its majesty. 3 remarkable structures, each equal in dimension and size. A synagogue, a church, and a mosque. That sort of tolerance, a tolerance which is extended to a flowering of religious institutions and communal institutions among Christians and Jews in this country, is surely a model to which one can only hope others in this region begin to emulate. So for these reasons, Your Highness, on behalf of the Board of Trustees, Board of Directors, Fellows, and staff of the Washington Institute, it is my honor and great privilege to award you our Scholar Statesman Medal. The obvious beginning question is why? Why peace? Why full peace? Why peace now, in summer of 2020? Why?
It's a very good question. This is a very important question. I have to go deep into it. سؤالك مهم جدا. ليش نحن قررنا على هذا القرار الكبير للسلام؟ حقيقة هناك وجدنا فرصة. قررنا علاقة دبلوماسية. هذا قرار بالنسبة لنا مهم لأسباب كثيرة. واحد، للفلسطينيين أنفسهم. اثنين، لإرسال رسالة واضحة للعالم وللمنطقة أن نحن ساعين لهذا السلام. ثلاثة، هي رسالة نحن ورثناها من المؤسس الشيخ زايد رحمة ربي عليه. هو صاحب رسالة سلام وصاحب رسالة محبة من بداية حياته في إنشاء هذه الدولة. هذه هي رؤيته ونحن على هذا الطريق نسير.
Okay. It is said that when leaders make a decision for peace, it's often a bold decision. When you and your colleagues made this decision for peace, how did you assess the risks?
لكل قرار مخاطر بدون شك. نحن نعيش في منطقة الشرق الأوسط أيضا صعب، ولكن الريورد الحافز والنتائج اللي بنحصل عليها أكبر بكثير من الخسائر. نحن لما قررنا هذا القرار كنا نطلع إلى تعاون أكبر من السلام نفسه، ولكن دولة الإمارات تطمح إلى سلام أكبر من ذلك.
Why you stop there? I think battery ran out. Guys, I'm out of battery.
Did it die?
Yeah.
The charger.
Where is Daphne?
The charger will not go in.
Really?
Yeah, the charger won't go in.
It's an American charger?
No, it's just this is too big. This section here, so it doesn't go in.
Do you want to
There's another charger on my computer. It's really small.
Black one.
The adapter on my plug is small. It's conspiracy.
No. Really? Thank you, Ben. Thank you so much.
Side.
What the hell? What is Daphne? His computer stopped. I don't know.
What happened?
His computer stopped.
But we had to put in the charger.
The battery died.
The battery died.
Thank you.
We put the charger.
Yeah, but it still
It
needs to
will
turn
take a
off.
while?
This is a really bad computer, which is why you try not to use it, because it reboots.
Rami, do you want to say some more?
Yeah, we will. Yeah, a little bit.
Randy, it's okay. You get the message.
We get the message.
Okay, Randy.
So
still
now
need this?
tell the computer back to the life again.
No, that's okay.
What I can say
Thank
is
you.
I think everything now become clear. The Abraham Accord, it's the future of the region. We already have a new Middle East. We're not allowed anybody to take us back again to the old Middle East. And the only solution is a cooperation and a different level, economically, culturally, military, security. And I would say, I'm sorry for my accent if interrupting any of you, and that is the new Middle East, that is the Abrahamic Accord, and thank you for attention. Thank you so much.
Jonathan, you want to sit in my seat?
Okay.
We have some time for Q&A. No, sit there.
He would like to the camera. Anybody who
So who would like to ask a question? Rob, do you have a comment or a question?
Very kind of you to have shown that excerpt. I guess the question which people should ask is how deep this goes.
Exactly.
In your group, we've seen leaders, we've seen all sorts of types of agreements. In your view, how deep does this agreement go? How broad does it really go?
You asking me?
Yeah, I'm asking you.
The Rob Shatloff asking me about what happened. We should ask him, by the way. No, you know better than me, Rob, that the region has completely changed. No, we are expecting more and more, but the beginning is a very strong beginning. As we talking about numbers here for economy and cooperation, we are talking about, we are expecting during the next decade $1 trillion. As I said, as I mentioned, as I'm a person growing up in Egypt, I know what's a problem for the young people there. Economy and hope is, economy will generate hope to those people. Hope is the most important thing for the young people. If you have stability, you have job, you have house, you will not risk by your life for any ideas. You will thinking not only twice, you are thinking several times before joining any radical groups or something like that. So economy is the key of a change in the region. But no economy, no cooperation without diplomatic and political cooperation. Okay, and after we already will initiate this economy deals and big manufacturing and technology, we need security and the defense to can defend this, because we have enemies, as we divided the region into axis of evil, indeed, and moderate countries. We have Iran destabilizing the region. Look what happened to Lebanon, look, Iraq, Syria, Yemen has been completely destroyed because there is a Shia project need to control over the region. So the alternative wasn't to create another Sunni project to defeat the Shia. We need a coalition based on interest and common interest, and here Abraham Accords. That is the future of the region.
Can I add something to that?
Yeah.
I would like to add I absolutely agree with the analysis, but I would like to add a slight caveat to it, which is the following. Absolutely agree that, you know, the economic model and capacity that Israel and UAE, specifically together, can sort of propose to the region is astonishing. And by contrast, the Iranian-led axis, as we see today in Lebanon and in Iraq also, has absolutely no economic or social model of any kind to propose. Where they entrench themselves in a country, the country over time becomes poor, becomes isolated. But nevertheless, and I think we need to really be bearing this in mind, the one thing which the Iranians and their friends do well, they do very well, and our Abraham Accords side, in my view at least, does not yet have a complete answer to this. What the Iranians do extremely peerlessly well in our region is the establishment of proxy political and military bodies in neighboring countries and the use of them to bring power and influence to Islamic Republic of Iran. This is what they're doing in Yemen, in Iraq, in Lebanon, and in Syria in different ways.
And Gaza.
And in Gaza also. And with regard to that mode of organization and activity, which is profoundly important to Iran, our side, let's say Israel, UAE, don't yet actually have an adequate response. We can do air warfare, and we're good at that. We can do intelligence, we're good at that too. When it comes to the mode of power which they operate, which of course has brought Lebanese Hezbollah to be the key political force in Lebanon today, and replicating in Yemen and Iraq with local conditions, we don't yet have, and we need to formulate an adequate response to that piece of the picture also.
To follow up, I want to ask a difficult question. So Harris and I were in the UAE, and I agree with the atmosphere and the environment and the shift politically, economically, and culturally in the region, especially in the UAE. And it's staggering that the leadership is not only speaking about peace and deep cooperation and deep peace, even on the issues of anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism, they're stronger. We were speaking in the last session, maybe than, you know, a significant portion of American Jewry. They're unequivocal. But I'm going to be a little skeptical, having stated all this positive stuff, and I agree. Their sense of history when it came to the Zionist entity is long term. Our sense of history is very short term. If I speak about certain political ideas or even music, Michael Jackson or Prince. That's ancient music for the young people. Whereas when it came to the Zionist entity and the Palestinian struggle and the foreign entity of the of Israel in the region, there was this sense that they were going to take the long view of history, and eventually they were going to conquer, as actually you quoted in your work, on the Shiite side, but also the Sunni side, they were going to get rid of Israel from the region. Is this potentially a strategic decision? Make peace for a period of time, get the technology, boost the region up, and when the situation is ripe, walk away from the peace agreement and continue with the long-term view and not accepting Jewish self-determination in the region. So I turn to you, Ted.
You can start, no problem.
My sense would not be that, Charles, but that's not out of a sense of complacency. It's rather out of the way that I would tend to see the region. I don't think that the Sunni Gulf states, and certainly the ones with which we've made peace, Saudi is maybe a more complex question, certainly the ones with which we've made peace, these were never a danger to Israel's existence, and neither of them, Bahrain or UAE, never really took part in the war against Israel. So for sure, sentiments may have changed, and there's a profound self-interest at the base of that, and it's a profound importance. But the notion that these, first of all, I don't think these states wish to go back on the decision they've taken. I think it is a strategic decision. Secondly, I don't think, frankly, it means that we've divested ourselves of particularly significant enemies, because they were never significant enemies, and they're very, very significant partners and friends, and that's why Abraham Accords is so profoundly important. But it doesn't mean that we've sort of got rid of a profound danger. There was never really a profound danger emanating from those countries. Once again, with regard to, I think this does though also lead on to the point that it's not to be skeptical of Abraham Accords, but to remember that in the large populated areas, with the exception of Egypt of course, but the populated areas of the northern tier of the Arab world, let's say in Iraq and in Syria and in Lebanon, this stuff has yet to apply. But if we talk about real danger and conflict emerging to Israel, from where? It emerges from those areas, not from the Gulf. And as of now, at least, the Abraham Accords has not yet impacted there. Let me give you an example of a country I work very closely on Iraq. Yeah. So people probably know, or many here probably know, that Prime Minister Mustafa al-Kadhimi in Iraq is a person who's a natural partner to the Abraham Accords. Where no question whatsoever, if Prime Minister Kadhimi was sitting here with us today and he was able to speak his mind, he would say, yeah, what's happening between Israel and the Gulf countries is very, very good indeed. Prime Minister Mustafa al-Kadhimi, however, is not really the sovereign in his country. Prime Minister al-Kadhimi cannot tell the Hashd al-Sha'bi, the Shia militias, where to go and where not to go. I personally joined the ISIS war as a journalist embedded with the Shia militias. I witnessed the fact that once they get outside of Baghdad, they put the uniforms on, take the rifles on, and nothing that the Iraqi state can say or not say to them has any impact whatsoever. This is the sphere from which danger still emanates to Israel. And as of now, at least, this sphere is not yet seriously impacted by the Abraham Accords.
Yeah, I'd like to add something quickly. I totally agree with what you said, but even if we pay attention for what Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed said, he mentioned we are looking for something more than peace. Something stable, more than peace. And he mentioned the Palestinian cause. He said this peace in the favor of the Palestinian as well. Why? Because as you know, Iranian militia and Muslim Brotherhood and all different groups use the Palestinian cause for a long time as a main tool to find a foothold for them in different countries. So when we working across Abraham Accord to find out a kind of solid, I will not final, but I can say a kind of solid solution for what's called Palestinian cause, we can prevent any serious action from this group. So the Abraham Accord and the peace between Emirates and Israel is something for forever. It's not just for 50 years, 100 years. They are looking for something save whole the region from what already tested before.
Thank you. Rabbi Abad.
Thank you again for the presentation, Dr. Rami.
You are welcome.
I'm going to speak from my experience of having lived there for 2 years and having had conversations with government officials, including His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed, his brother, and a few other people. So first, I will begin with what His Highness Sheikh Abdullah, who was the brother of the president of today and who was the foreign minister, he said from the beginning that this is not a peace treaty, because there was never a war with Israel, as Dr. Spire alluded to that a little bit. This is a normalization treaty. When you have a normalization treaty, the ground behind it is different than a peace treaty. There are no memories of wars. There are no memories of injured. There are no memories of death of soldiers or people that have in their family, unlike Egypt and Jordan, where families still until today mourn the death of their brothers, their sons, fathers, and so on and so forth that died in the war. So he says it's not a peace treaty. We were never at war with Israel. It's a normalization treaty. And he's used the term, it is normal to have relations with other nations, especially nations in your region and nations that are important. And so that's the impetus. Now, did they do it strictly for interest and security issues? So let me just say first and foremost, there's definitely mutual interest of the Israeli side and of the UAE side and Bahrain side to have relations. No country will do anything against their own survival except Israel. But any other country in the world, when they do something, they do it for interest, but that's normal, and it should be that way. And so yes, there's no question that there are interests, military interest, economic interest, agricultural, technology interest, whatever interest there are. But that's normal between two countries that live in a region. It's normal to have relations, normal to fulfill their interests and their needs mutually. So that does not contradict, however, I don't know if we would call it the philosophy or the real impetus that I heard, I saw, and I was told. And this is to paraphrase His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed, the president of the country. At that time, he was a crown prince. When I had a private conversation with him, he said, we came to the realization that extremist Islam is not only going to destroy us, but it's going to destroy the entire world. They will put this world on a fire. He spoke to me in Arabic, I'm translating. He said, and that's not what the true meaning of Islam. The true meaning of Islam comes from the word salam, peace, and therefore we came to the realization that if we do not fight it, these jihadist, extremist Islamists will destroy the entire world. And God has given us this world to protect it and to develop it and not to destroy it. He said, I asked my father during the first Gulf War, he said, why did you send our soldiers, Muslim soldiers, to kill other Muslims, Bin Laden and his group? He said, and my father asked me, well, you're an intelligent man, you tell me, why do you think I sent them? He said, well, you want to be on the good side of President Bush? He said, well, that's 5%. He said, so what about the other 95%? You tell me, you think about it. He said, well, you agree with President Bush. He says, that's another 5%. He says, so what about the other 90%? He said, the other 90% is that we are not going to fight and kill Muslims. We're going to fight and kill infidels, he said, because those Muslims are not true Muslims. They are misrepresenting religion, Islam in that sense. They are distorting Islam, and they're destroying the world. And that's not what God wanted or wants. And so therefore, that's what we are doing, and we are not violating, our religious principles. So I do see that is probably the major background of the reason of the Accords. But of course, there are interests, and those are it's normal. But also I would say that whenever they mention the Palestinian cause, that's my view. I think they mention it only because it's a commitment to mention it. Because if they do not mention it, they will have a greater objection to the accord. It's like it's something that you need to mention. How much they believe it, I am not sure, to tell you the truth. I have heard saying like we have been blinded for the last 73 years of a false narrative, of a narrative that blinded the entire Arab world. Look where we are and look where Israel is. What have we gained from this rejectionist policies and position? We were misled by people who are not interested in peace, and we're tired of that. And we ought to find whatever is beneficial to our country and our people. So I think this is what I would say the background of that.
Sarah?
So I have two very important questions. First, for Rami, if you can comment a little bit more about the two other countries of the Abraham Accords, which are Morocco and Sudan. I will appreciate that. And the other question is for you, Jonathan, but not as an intellectual, more as a diplomat. 2 years ago, the World Jewish Congress Courts did a very strong campaign about Hezbollah to convince governments to designate Hezbollah as a terrorist organization. We met with several countries to discuss the issue, and they did not have any information about Hezbollah. And I met with Mexico, with my country, and they really didn't know that there was activity and Hezbollah cells in Latin American countries dealing with cartels. So I wish to know if you have more research about that you can share with us so I can pass it, and also if you can comment on that, because it's something that we're extremely worried about. We know that it's happening, and as Jewish communities we're vulnerable to that as well. So, but we still need more information so we can prove to governments, you know, this is happening, and they're dealing with cartels in Latin America. So thank you.
Let me start, please.
I'm sorry for too long questions. I'm expecting too long answers. I'm sorry, but
No, I will answer you quickly about Morocco. Morocco has a good relationship with Israel even before the Abrahamic Accord. Morocco has a historical relationship with Israel in different level, security level, economic level was a little bit, but there was some cooperation. But this kind of relationship interrupted after the second Intifada, and Morocco closed the representative office that they have been has been in Israel before. But now I can say that there is a big cooperation between Morocco and Israel, even in military level, defense level, and tourist level, economic level. But I didn't talk so much about Morocco because I'm a little bit interested about what happened in the narrow circle of the Middle East. For Sudan, unfortunately, Sudan is going through a kind of destabilization. There is, we can say, a domestic, a little fight between civilian and the military about the power, but and somehow sooner or later will be involved with more. But here we are talking about Egypt again, because Egypt is considered Sudan as a backyard. So Egyptian-Israeli relationship will be good to enhance the situation in Sudan across the Abrahamic Accord, and this will lead to improvement the condition of Camp David as well. Thank you.
Yeah, with regard to Hezbollah and diplomatic efforts to achieve designation, yeah, of course, as you're aware, in Europe there's been very considerable progress on this in recent years. The kind of big remaining prize is France, but in the UK and in Germany, you know, there has been very significant progress. And I'm aware a little bit of some of the diplomatic activity that preceded that. There is a problem with our system, or the Israeli system, with regard to this stuff, which is that it tends to not want to publicly show a lot of the kind of information which it's sharing with governments. And that then impacts, so to speak, on the kind of very necessary public campaigning that ought to be taking place. Having said that, I am aware of, and it's very possible that Rob Satloff and Winnock are doing work on this. I'm not aware of if they are or not. I know that one person in Washington who is working very hard on this is Emmanuel Ottolenghi at the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies, and that he has travelled extensively also down to the tri-border area and specifically looking at the issue of Hezbollah activity, obviously among Shia Lebanese communities resident in Latin America. And so that's a person who obviously is active in the public sphere on a very sort of practical, down-to-earth level. I'm very happy to share with you. He'd be happy to hear from you. There's a lot of stuff. It's all public stuff, and it could probably be very helpful to you. So yeah, I'm happy to talk to you afterwards about that.
Thank you.
The final question of the session.
Three very quick questions.
Three?
Yeah.
Not so much.
Actually, two questions and one comment. In terms of the Morocco side, a good indication of how Morocco feels about Jews in general is that the Jews in Morocco, so at the leadership level, actually call the ruler the Amir al-Mu'mineen, the leader, the king, or whatever you want to call it, of the believers, and therefore they are his subjects. So Morocco has historically a good relationship with Jews, and with Israel it will continue.
Exactly.
But two very quick questions.
Two questions?
My first one, actually for both of you. The first one is that when Charles and I were there, I was saying to Charles, it's the right step in the UAE. Yes, change has to come from top down, but I'm telling you, Charles, I kept saying it, that the public aren't necessarily with the rulers on this yet. So my first question, and I think some research from the Washington Institute and others have actually shown that that's the case, and it's declining. So my first question, how long do you think that the actions from the leadership will filter down to their civil society across the board, where we have a big majority of people that actually are going along with their rulers, not just because they have to, it's their duty, it's the law, whatever you want to call it, but they really want to. That's number one. The second one specifically to you, Rami, is that you mentioned a couple of times that in your presentation that by improving the economic and social conditions of the region, people won't be recruited and radicalized to join ISIS and groups like that. I have my own analysis on this, but I'm curious to know yours. The World Bank and others have done some great research on foreign fighters in Iraq and Syria joining ISIS, and they showed that overwhelmingly the people that came from other countries, certainly in the West, were people who had better social conditions, education, standing than the national averages. So my question to you is, if social and economic conditions prevent people from joining ISIS, why did European, UK Muslims travel thousands of miles? They had good economic standing.
I have answered.
Why did they travel thousands of miles? I know you do. Thousands of miles to go to join ISIS and kill other Muslims? That's my question.
Yeah, that's a good question. And recently, many people asking the same question and said, why there is 3,000 young men came from Europe or more than that to join ISIS in Iraq and Sham while they have a good life conditions in their countries? Marginalization is the answer. You know, those people have a kind of double loyalty. For this reason, Muslim World League recently started to talking about you are a Muslim, but you are a citizen of France, you are a citizen of UK, you are a citizen of Italy, for instance, or other. You are not a member of international or Islamic Caliphate. So here, when you're talking about the people came from Europe, they are not there for economic or social conditions. They are for Aqidah, ideological perspective. But the situation in Egypt, in Arab countries where I came from, I think the problem is different. The people trying to express themselves or to find an opportunity to say that we are here during jihad, the term of jihad, because has no money, has no family, has no hope at all. There is no democracy. He can't speak and express about his opinion because he's afraid from the regime. So he said, okay, I'm going to do another role through what? Through jihad. If I got killed during the battle, I will go to the heaven. I have 72 and 3 Horian. You know this narrative. So the different perspective about joining ISIS between European and Arabs is come to that. Thank you so much.
I think that's really, can I just express strong support for that view and for the interesting distinction between the foreign fighters.
Thanks for your support.
Which was Harris correctly points out, and what it looks like in the region. I mean, certainly as looking closely at the Syrian and the Iraqi wars and seeing organizations like Jabhat al-Nusra and these jihadi organizations, of course, but the complexion of the people who were joining them and the reasons they were joining them were profoundly different. These were very, very poor people for the most part from peripheral parts of Syria and Iraq, who, as explained to me and other researchers during those years, would often express it by the kind of following statement, something like the following: well, the Shia have and the Alawis have Hezbollah and Assad. The Kurdish people have the PKK. We have to have something too. That's what's going down right now. You've got to find some organization that's going to protect you. So often these quite simple motivations are what drawing people in. Also, with regard to your first question, if I may, Harris. Look, without wishing to sound cynical, we have peace treaties with Egypt and with Jordan now. The Egyptian one nearly half a century old, the Jordanian one since 1994, and frankly, both of those peace agreements have held largely without the consent or support of the publics in both countries, so that we can probably accept this. And you know, my sense at least, I guess from a very pragmatic point of view, is that as of now, as the Arab Spring begins to recede already into history, the unrest of the last decade begins to recede into history, frankly, the authoritarian rulers of the Arab world today are extremely strong and look like they're going to be here for a while. So I absolutely agree with the importance, by any means that we can, of deepening this, not only in UAE and Bahrain, also in Egypt and Jordan. And I would welcome anything like that. But I'm not terribly worried about it, I must say, because I do think, as of now at least, these authoritarian rulers, whether it's Sisi or the King in Jordan or the guys in UAE and Bahrain, are fairly secure in their seats right now. And as long as that lasts, this stuff will last.
That's the key.
So, guys, thank you. So Rami and Jonathan, thank you very much for insights and wisdom, and they're around for a while too, if you guys want to speak with them. I'll just say two quick things. At 2:30 we have a very important lecture with Rob, so please return on time after lunch. And for the American people, we were discussing about race and whiteness and, you know, all this stuff. If an American was walking down the street and saw these two guys, who would be the Israeli and who would be the Arab?
No worry. Yeah, exactly.